Hey everyone, this is Joe. I am the digital astronomer. I want to welcome you to my channel today. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to focus on processing. I'm going to take some data that I collected on M16, the Eagle Nebula, and I want to show you how I went from this raw stack right here, all right, to this finished picture. And specifically, I want to show you two things that I did on this picture. Number one, I want to show you how to keep from blowing out your stars. This is a problem that I face almost every time that I process pictures of nebulae. So often they're in areas with so many stars, and it has perplexed me. But I kind of came up with a little bit of a system to do it. I've combined some techniques from a lot of different videos that I've watched on it. The other thing I want to show you is I want to show you a new tool called Topaz Labs Noise Reduction. This is a great little tool. I think you're going to like it. I want to show you how I did this picture. A lot of you will be able to do better than this, but this is honestly probably the most sophisticated level of post-processing that I've done so far. So I hope you enjoy it. Stick around. We're going to look at how to process the Eagle Nebula using Photoshop and Topaz Labs noise reduction. Okay, the first thing I need to do is stack all of my images together. I captured 92 4-minute long subs over the course of 2 nights. So let me show you what I've done here in Astropixel Processor. The first thing I had to do was set my bear pattern and force bear CFA here in this tab. I've loaded up my 92 lights, 40 flats, 21 darks, and 40 dark flats into Astropixel Processor. Basically, I leave all of the settings on calibrate, analyze, register, normalize. I leave all of those set to the default settings. On integrate, I do make a couple of changes. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down through here. I'm going to change weight to quality rather than equal. I'm going to weight these on quality. I also am going to turn the local normalization correction. I'm going to turn that up to 1 degree and leave this at 3 iterations. I'm also going to, on my outlier filter, I'm going to go down and turn this to local normalization med sigma clip. All right, that seems to work best for me. The other thing that I'm going to do on this particular data is I'm going to go ahead and set the drizzle to bare drizzle, and I'm going to turn this up to 2.0. And I find this gives me a little bit better resolution. All I've got to do now to stack my images is click on integrate. We'll be back in a few minutes to look at the stacked picture. Okay, here's the stack that I got out of Astropixel Processor. The only thing that I did other than stacking my lights, darks, flats, and dark flats together in APP was I did a light pollution removal routine and a background calibration along with a star color calibration. You can look at some of my previous videos to see how to do that. Those are not very hard at all. When I got done, I saved the final result as a TIFF. Didn't do anything else in APP. Now, let me show you what I've got here just so you can kind of get an idea. First thing I need to do, because I drizzled this image, is I'm going to come in, I'm going to do a image reduce the size. I'm going to take it down 50%, okay? And that's because otherwise it's just way too big. It's like 10,000 pixels across, and I forget how many down. It's just too large of a file to work with. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and crop this image a little bit because as always, you always have some stacking aberrations around the outside edges. So I'm going to just take this and I'm going to crop it just a tiny bit. Okay. The next thing that I want to do to this image, all right, is I want to make a couple slight adjustments here. So I'm going to go up to image. I'm going to go and make I'm going to move the black point just a tad here in this image on my levels. All right. Then I'm going to go up to curves, and I want to put a slight S curve here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of give this, drop this down just a little bit, and I'm going to give it ever so subtle of an S curve. Okay, very subtle in this particular instance. Now you can do this as you want to, however much you want to, but that's where I'm going to stop. Okay, so that's what I've done to this image so far. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to go up here to my astronomy tools. I'm going to use two plugins in this routine. I'm going to put links in my description for both of these so you can find them. But this is astronomy tools, and it's a little plugin for Photoshop. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run make stars smaller. Okay. Now you can experiment with this. If you want to put this at a different spot in your routine, you can. But this is kind of where I decided to put it for mine. Okay, so I've reduced the size of the star. Next thing that I want to do is I want to duplicate this background by drawing it down and onto the plus sign. Now I've duplicated this background. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to another plugin called Annie's Astro Actions. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to run the remove stars large image. Just click on the little arrow, the little play button. It's going to take just a couple of seconds and it will run through and it's going to remove all of the stars from this layer right here. Now, the reason I did that was to create two layers is if you run this on the background copy, then it's going to remove all the stars. You don't want to do that. So permanently. What I can do now, see, is I can adjust this opacity, and if I want to, I can bring the stars back in, right? Because I'm letting the bottom layer shine through, which you'll see how handy that is in a few moments. Okay, so this is what I've got. Next thing that I want to do is I want to do a curve adjustment, another curve adjustment, and I want to brighten up that nebulae. So here on this level, I'm going to go up to the image and select image adjustment, select curves. I'm going to put a dot here and a dot here. And I am going to pull that S curve and make it a little bit more dramatic this time. Okay? I'm going to draw this down just to make the contrast stick out a little bit. And you can kind of see what that's doing to the image here. I've brightened up a lot of nebulosity out around in here. I'm going to flatten this out just a tad. I always pull this down just a little bit as well. Okay. And so I'm pretty happy with that. Now, again, you can do this as you want to. You can adjust this, make this S-curve look however you want to. Okay, I'm going to press OK. So that's my curve adjustment. Once I've done that, then what I want to do is go back over to Astronomy Tools, to that first plugin I used, and then there's a little routine over here called Local Contrast Enhancement. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on play, and I'm going to run this just on this level. And what that's going to do is going to bring out some of the contrast in some of the structures. For instance, down here, if you'll notice what that did, that made the pillars pop out much, much more detailed. Made these little box globules pop out just a little bit more. Okay, next thing I have to do is I've got all of this mess out here with some of these brighter stars. So what I'm going to do is go over to my spot healing tool. All right, and I've set this with a rather large brush here. Okay, so I've gone up to size 147 pixels, and watch what will happen. I'm just going to go through here, and I'm going to go ahead and clear these out. I'm going to go in and just start working on clearing this up. Now, this is going to take me a little while, okay? And you're going to have to spend some time going through here. And what you want to do is make sure, like look at this. You can do this a more systematic way than I'm doing it right now, but I want to show you this. Like here's well, there was a really bright star right there, and it left a little bit of a artifact. I want to go and remove those. If I don't do that, it's going to make my stars look funky when I go back and change the opacity. So you can see what I'm doing. Just taking the spot healing brush, moving it over top of these, clicking on my mouse, and I'm cleaning up all of this mess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video here for just a minute, and I'll be back, and I'll show you the finished product once I get this done, and I'll show you the next step. Okay, it took me about 15 or 20 minutes or so, but I've used the spot healing tool, and I've gone through here and I've cleaned up some of those star remnants. Now, again, I don't know how much time you're going to want to spend on that. I can get a little bit obsessive with it, and really just the longer I sit here, the more of these little spots I see. And again, it's just a matter of going down there and collect them. Now, let me show you something. Look at how much nebulosity we're seeing so far in this image. And I know it's ugly right now. It doesn't look very good. But look what happens. If I turn that off, look how much more nebulosity is popping through. Now, I know there's no stars yet, but we're going to fix that here in just a couple of seconds, okay? So I've gone through now, and I've removed all of sort of the star, with the healing brush. I've got rid of some of these messes that, from the leftovers of those stars. Now what I want to do is just go down here, click on opacity. And we want to make sure you've got this background copy selected, the one that you took the stars out of, and just reduce this opacity down to about 50%. Okay. Now, notice what's happened. Our stars are back. They're a little bit dim for my taste. Now, you might want to leave this part alone, but I'll show you what I did. I went back down to the background copy. Click on the background. I went up and grabbed the adjustments, image adjustments, brightness, and contrast, and I took my brightness up just a little bit. Okay, I took it up to about, I'm going to say about 45 here. Okay, I think is where I'm just going to click that in. All right. And then I'm going to take the contrast up just a tad. We'll take it up maybe to around, 15 ought to be good. Okay. Now, if I go back to the background copy, notice that my stars are a little bit brighter than they were. Okay, so that's basically what I did to protect my stars. And you'll notice my stars didn't blow out, but I've got a lot more nebulosity showing here. Okay, so if I go over there, look how much more nebulosity. It's much, much better. Okay, now I'm going to flatten this image. Next thing that I want to do is I want to go up to Camera Raw, up to Filter, select Camera Raw, and I'm going to do just a couple things. What I want to do is make the pillars of creation and some of the details in the nebula to pop out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play around here with this slider. In my data, if I take the shadows up, that kind of washes things out. If I draw this down just a little bit, okay, if I draw it down to around 25 or so, I kind of like that. It darkens up some of these shadows, and it gives me a little bit more detail in there, okay? I can do that with the whites too. You can increase them. That brightens up that core, but I don't want that core to get blown out. So what I want to do is I'm going to drop that down just a tad, maybe about -5. And that just kind of keeps this core looking a little bit better. Again, this is to taste. You figure out what you like. I'm also going to play around with the texture and clarity a little bit. All right, so I'm going to pull the clarity up a little bit. And you got to be careful depending on what kind of data you have. I'm going to pull that up to around 30. I like that. Sometimes, depending on what kind of data you have, you might get a lot of noise if you pull up this texture too much. So just be careful with that, all right? Next thing I'm going to do, I'm pretty happy with that on here. If I pull actually, I'm going to pull that texture down just a tad. Let me try 15. Let me mess around with that a little bit, because I also want to pull up the clarity a little bit. And all right, now look what you've got. Look right in this area here. I think is a pretty good place to see what I'm doing here. If I move this clarity up and down, if I move it away, I begin to see that begins to, you lose some of the detail. But if I pull this clarity up, I'm going to pull it up to right about there. I think is pretty good. And notice what I've got. I've got a lot more detail showing up in and around this area in here. Okay, now I can pull out maybe a little bit more. If I go over here to these triangles, I can pull my sharpening up a little bit. I can sharpen this up just a tad. I don't want to go too far. If I go too far, it's going to kind of maybe make the stars look a little bit funky. So I'm going to keep this somewhere around in this region here, maybe. Again, you've got to play with this and figure out what works for you. I can pull the detail up in here sometimes. That will work a little bit. Maybe pull it up to around 30. Again, play with these sliders until you get something that you like and that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. What's great about this particular data set is I hardly have any noise in this picture. I'm actually going to clean up the little bit that's left with another tool. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. That's going to apply those changes here to my main picture. Now I'm going to go up and maybe just adjust my color just a minute. And I'll be right back. I've got to answer the phone. All right. All right, I apologize for that. I got a phone call right in the middle of filming this, but so anyway, sorry about that. Okay, so I've got my basic adjustments made. I'm going to do a little bit of a color adjustment here, so I'm going to go over to my channel mixer, and I've already played around with this a little bit, and but I'll show you kind of what I've done. I'm going to pull the red up just a little bit here. I know that looks ridiculous right now. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back and get the actual right channel. Let me go to red. All right, and I'm going to play around with that a little bit. I'm going to back that off just a tad. Okay, and let's see what happens here. And again, this is something you're just going to have to play around with until you get it to where you want it to be. I kind of mess around with these colors incessantly at times. Again, I'll take that green back just a little bit. Gives me a little bit more of a magenta look. I kind of like that. I think that's magenta. I really don't know my colors. I just said that to sound like I knew what I was doing. But I kind of like that look there, that kind of look. All right, and so now what I want to do next is show you probably one of the coolest tools that I've found in a long time. All right. This is Topaz Labs noise reduction. Okay. So I've been playing around with this. I think I'm going to go ahead and probably get the paid version. But this is this is a free trial. I've been playing around with this for a little while. And what I've got it set up for is so it will show this will show my original picture over on this side. This will show my the processed image over here. Okay, and I've got it kind of zoomed in right now. It's pretty tight in here on the pillars, which is kind of the real central focus of this image anyways. This again is my original. You can see some of the noise in here. You can kind of see it immediately will give you some settings that it thinks that you're going to like or that it thinks should be set up on. And again, this is based on artificial intelligence, apparently. They've looked at a whole bunch of images, millions and millions and millions of images, and kind of looked at what people tend to sharpen. So what it's done is it goes over here and how it removes noise. All right. So what I'm going to actually do is use this to sharpen this up just a tad bit more. And so I'm going to pull my sharpen slider over to, let's say, around 30. We'll see what that does. And I'm going to leave the remove noise down to about 15. And what we'll do is it's going to take just a moment and it'll generate now the preview. And you can see that that's done a pretty good job. I don't know about you, but that looks pretty good. There's hardly any noise left in it. I think I will maybe move the recover original details up and the noise, color noise reduction to maybe around 0.10. And we'll see what that does. Now, again, you could play with these sliders all day if you want to, but I'm going to tell you that looks pretty good. Now, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's back out a little bit to a zoom 50% rather than 100%. Let it generate a new preview and take a look at this. Again, I'll put a link for Topaz Denoise AI. It is an incredible tool, not only for taking out noise in a picture, but I'm using it to sharpen my pictures as well. And I'll tell you what, I think it's probably worth the little bit of money that it costs. It is a great tool. Honestly, I think it does a little bit better job than Photoshop's Camera Raw, the sharpening and the noise reduction in it. Look at that. That looks pretty good. I got to tell you, that is pretty amazing. All right. I'm going to go over here to single view and just show you. This is the central focus of that image. All right. So I just click on apply. That's going to apply it. It's going to take a little bit of time. This will apply all of those changes over to Photoshop. Now, let me say this one thing about Topaz Labs Denoise that I've noticed. This part of the process, at least on my computer, is a little bit slow. But what it's going to end up doing is it's going to process that entire picture. Remember, this is a pretty large picture. This is like 5,000 pixels. This is my maximum resolution on my camera. And so it's a pretty large picture. It's going to take several minutes for it to get this done. All right, I'll come back. I'm going to pause the video. I'll come back. I'll show you in Photoshop the final result. But that gives you a pretty good idea of this incredible tool. Topaz Noise AI, Denoise AI, is, I think, probably a very valuable tool for anybody that's doing astrophotography. All right, we'll take a couple of minutes and we'll be right back. All right, so just to go back for a moment, this was the original image that I got out of Astropixel Processor when I stacked my data. This is the final picture. Let's just take a couple of moments and give me a little drum roll there. This is the picture that we just went through and processed, and you can see a lot more detail. You can see some of the fainter nebulosity out around the Eagle. There's still more out there. I guess I probably could have stretched it maybe a little more. You can see some faint nebulosity up here, but I'm really excited about that. If I zoom in, look at the beautiful structure in here. You can see some of the darker clouds, little Bach globules. And of course, here are the majestic pillars of creation. I'm really, really happy with this image, and I hope that helps you. If you've got some suggestions on better ways to do things, obviously put them down there in the comments. I want to strongly encourage you, if you're an astrophotographer, take a couple of moments, go down, download the free trial version of Topaz Labs Noise Reduction. And take a look at it. Of course, I showed you the other plugins that I've got that I've been using, Astronomy Tools and Annie's Astro Tools. All of those are great products and very, very helpful in processing. But I'll tell you, this Topaz Denoise and sharpening tool, I think, is going to become a regular part of my plan and probably yours too. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please tune in next week and we'll look at another subjects. Thanks for tuning in today. Just a quick reminder, if you enjoyed this video, please help support me by clicking on thumbs up and share. Thank you.